come in this morning, first place in the division after the way things started?
It took a lot of hard work, man. Honestly, it was a great feeling, man. But we know how the season is. Very long, and you never know how it plays out. You got to take it one game at a time.
All right, the Steelers are sitting in first place in the AFC North division. I hope everyone had an enjoyable bye week, but we are back, and so are the Steelers, having a bonus day of practice today here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. Joining me now, my good friends who are also back to work this week, Bob Labriola and Tunch Ilkin. Tunch, we know you got your steps in New York City. You're ready to go. It's Browns week, second half of the season.
You know, I feel rejuvenated, recharged, and ready to go. Yeah, it is going to be a lot of fun. Now, this is where all the games count. And, you know, Missy, I think one of the things that I love about this part of the season, you look back, and the two losses that the Steelers suffered and the one tie, you know, had a major impact a few weeks ago. Well, now the Steelers are in first place, and they don't look so bad. And now you could focus forward with every game meaning a lot, especially starting this week versus Cleveland, and then next week versus the Baltimore Ravens. Not that I'm looking ahead, but I am looking ahead, and I'm very excited for the next 10 football games.
That's right, Labs. 2 AFC North matchups coming up for the Steelers. Browns here at Heinz Field Sunday, 1 o'clock, then traveling to Baltimore. Both teams the Steelers have already saw so far this season.
Right, and what I take from the weekend of watching a lot of football, both college and the NFL, you even had that London game, 9:30 in the morning.
Football all day.
Football all day, yes. You know, what I took from yesterday's games was that this is one of those years, and it usually is, where the Baltimore Ravens are a team that you have to reckon with. And my experience is when the Baltimore Ravens are a team that you have to reckon with, the Steelers are the team that have to take care of them themselves. They can never really count on outside help to take care of the Ravens for them, and that's why I think in 2 weeks at M&T Bank Stadium, it's going to be a battle royale between the two heavyweights in the division.
All right, let's take a look at the standings just so we can finally see the Steelers in that one spot. As Marquise Pouncey was joking, they didn't really have to work too hard for it, but all of the teams in the division, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns losing on Sunday, and it was nice. You had the Browns at 1 o'clock, then it was the Ravens game at 4, and then the Bengals, of course, on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, and as everyone was talking after on the bus ride home from Cleveland back on September the 9th, boy, this tie feels like a loss. Well, as you can see by those standings, it is not a loss, and it now is, in fact, helping the Steelers by not being a loss. It doesn't even have to be a victory to put them into first place. So it felt bad at the time. You never like not to beat the Browns, especially in Cleveland, but it may have felt like a loss, but it wasn't, and that's to the Steelers' benefit as we sit here right now.
And there's more motivation now. You tied them, and now you can't take them lightly. There's a little more anger, there's a little more focus, there's a little more intensity, and I think this is going to be a great opportunity for the Steelers for some redemption. Normally, you're not looking for redemption after a tie, but when you tie the Cleveland Browns, you better believe it, you are.
All right, so how different is this Steelers team from week 1, even though that feels like years ago, till right now, week 8, as they prepare for the Browns take 2? Here's linebacker Bud Dupree.
You know, we've changed a lot. You know, guys are getting more comfortable with the scheme. You know, communication is better. All the things are starting to mold together. Guys are playing loose and playing free. And we can have a great preparation week each week. You know, we got to make sure that we go out every day with the intention to get better at practice, and so we can translate to the game.
All right, and we have all week to talk about the Browns and how they've changed from week 1. Of course, we know Baker Mayfield is their quarterback now, a lot to go over. But first, I want to just get, before we kind of tie a bow on the bye week, guys, is just your take of what you need to see in the second half of the season. And Labs, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that what we've seen from the first 6 games, the defense remains a work in progress. But when you look at the games in which the defense has played well, I think the one constant has been pressure on the opposing quarterback. You know, to put some numbers to it, the Steelers have lost 2 games, and the other 3 games I will categorize as non-losses. In their 2 losses, they only have 3 sacks. In the other games, non-losses, they have 16. In their 2 games that were losses, they only had 7 pressures. In the other games that were non-losses, they had 35. So I think that, you know, as we look at this Steelers team and project, you know, what it could become down the road, I think we focus, or at least I do, I focus on the defense and its development, continued development, and try and gauge how far that this unit can, I won't say carry the team, but contribute to team victories as the opponents get more difficult in the both, not only in the second half of the regular season, but also then in the postseason. So I'm looking at pressuring the passer. I think that you cannot allow opposing quarterbacks time to look for holes in the Steelers' pass coverage, because there will be holes there. As we're seeing all over the league, there are holes in every team's pass coverage if the quarterback has enough time to survey it. And even in the game against the Bengals, in their last outing, the last 2 minutes of each half, I think that the pressure wasn't really what it needed to be, and we saw Andy Dalton move the Bengals down for touchdowns at the end of each half. Now, the Steelers ended up winning that game, but that's kind of what I mean by consistent pressure on the passer. And if it requires blitzing, blitz. If you can't get there with 4, send 5. Because even when we're looking at what happened yesterday, you know, what the New Orleans Saints, a good defense in their own right, didn't do against the Baltimore Ravens was get pressure on Joe Flacco, and the Ravens marched right down the field. If it's not for a missed extra point at the end of that game, who knows what that outcome would have been, and who knows who would be in first place in the AFC North today.
All right, Tunch, you said you're rejuvenated, you're well rested.
Right.
What do you need to see from the Steelers in the second half?
You know, one of the things that I've really enjoyed is the play of our tight ends. And one of the things, when you go ace personnel groupings, you have 2 tight ends. That gives you a lot of versatility. You can use 2 tight ends. You could put one of them as an H-back. You can use one of them as a fullback. You can actually go 4 wides and use them both as in the slot. And I think what I love about that formation, or that personnel grouping rather, is that you can play a lot more physical. You look at Vance McDonald, and he can block. Jesse James, both those guys are great in space where they can catch the ball, but they also have a physicality, especially Vance. You know, one of the things that you saw in Vance McDonald, especially early in the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, was how physical he was. And one of the things that my old buddy and former roommate Mike Mularkey used to say is that when he was the offensive coordinator here, he wanted their offense to have the reputation to be a physical offense, as physical as their defense, not in relationship, but compared to the rest of the offenses in the National Football League. And when you look at multiple tight end looks, and when you see Xavier Grimble in there and Vance McDonald, you are going to pound the ball. They ran that play down Cincinnati Bengals' throat. That's called the old Ride 38. And the way they did it was they angle block down. They pulled their right guard, David DeCastro. You pull the center, Marquise Pouncey. Both those guys are very, very athletic and can move. But now you've got your tight ends blocking down, and that's not a bad matchup for Vance McDonald. It's not a bad matchup for Jesse James. And both those guys can play the finesse game and get open deep down in the secondary. So, you know, I just love it. You get a tight end to control the middle of the field. You know, to quote Sid Gilman, your offense, your passing game is going to be dominant.
All right, thank you so much, guys. As we said, the bye week is over. Coach Tomlin's press conference resumes tomorrow at noon. We'll be back at 4 and then practice again Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as we get ready for the Browns. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.